Welcome back. Before we go anywhere today, I need you to understand something about the decision you made, the one that did not involve screaming or exposing them or burning everything down on your way out the door. The quiet decision. The dignified one. The one that probably felt, in the moment, like losing. Today, we establish the truth. That decision was the most devastating thing you could have done. And they are still feeling it. Everyone told you to fight back. Everyone in your corner, the friends who watched you diminish, the family members who saw the light leaving your eyes, every single one of them wanted you to retaliate. To expose. To detonate. To make the narcissist pay in a currency visible enough to satisfy the rage that the relationship produced in everyone who loved you. And you chose something different. You chose silence. You chose exit. You chose yourself. Without the theater of revenge. Here is the question that this entire video exists to answer. The question you may have asked yourself in the weeks and months after you left, lying awake wondering if the quiet exit was a mistake, wondering if they felt any of it, wondering if dignity was actually just another word for letting them win. Did leaving without revenge actually cost them anything? Or did the absence of a fight give them exactly the clean exit they always wanted? The narcissist wanted you to fight. They needed you to fight. A final confrontation, explosive, emotional, publicly visible, would have given them three things they desperately required: a reaction confirming their centrality, a narrative positioning you as unstable, and a dramatic ending they could perform as victimhood to their next audience. You gave them none of those things. You simply left. And that absence of drama was not mercy. It was psychological warfare of the highest order. There is a reason the narcissist cannot stop thinking about the person who left without revenge. There is a reason that specific exit, quiet, final, completely devoid of the emotional spectacle they had grown accustomed to provoking, haunts them in a way that no amount of explosive confrontation ever could. That reason is rooted in the deepest architecture of narcissistic psychology. And once you understand it, you will never again question whether your dignified exit was powerful enough. What you did when you walked away without revenge was this: you removed yourself from the story entirely. Not as a character who was defeated. Not as a character who was written out. But as an author who closed the book, set it down, and walked away from the entire narrative without looking back. And the narcissist, who needed to be the most important character in every story you were part of, was left alone in a plot that suddenly had no audience. This video is for everyone who made the quiet choice. Everyone who swallowed the rage and carried it somewhere private. Everyone who chose their own future over the temporary satisfaction of making the narcissist visibly accountable in ways the narcissist would have immediately weaponized. You did not take the bait. You did not give them the finale they scripted. And today, we document precisely what that cost them, in clinical, psychological, irrefutable detail. Some of what follows will surprise you. Some of it will validate years of wondering. Some of it will produce an anger that arrives late, the anger of understanding, finally and completely, how calculated the dynamic was and how perfectly your dignified exit dismantled it. All of those responses are appropriate. All of them belong to this reckoning. Let them come. You have earned every one of them. We will move through 5 chapters today, from the psychology of why your exit hit them harder than any revenge could have, through the specific collapse that followed, to the final truth about what leaving without revenge reveals about who you are and what your life is now capable of becoming. Every paragraph of this script is a piece of the complete picture. Stay for all of it. Because here is what the narcissist will never tell you, what they will perform indifference over, reconstruct narratives around, and acquire new supply to avoid confronting directly. Your quiet exit did not just end the relationship. It ended their version of themselves. It ended the story they had been telling about you, about them, about the dynamic, about who had the power. You left without revenge. And in doing so, you took everything. To understand why leaving without revenge is more devastating to a narcissist than any retaliation could be, you must first understand what the narcissist was actually managing throughout the entire relationship. They were not managing love. They were not managing connection. They were managing a narrative, a carefully constructed, constantly maintained story about who they were, who you were, and what the relationship meant. Your exit without revenge destroyed the narrative's ending. And a story without an ending cannot be filed away. It haunts indefinitely. The narcissist's entire psychological survival strategy depends on being the central, most powerful character in every interpersonal dynamic they inhabit. This centrality requires that other people react to them, significantly, emotionally, visibly. Every reaction you gave throughout the relationship, whether love or fury or grief, confirmed their position as the axis around which your psychological world rotated. Leaving without revenge removed every confirmation simultaneously. And the narcissist's sense of centrality collapsed without the confirmation to hold it upright. Here is the specific psychological mechanism your quiet exit triggered, what clinicians call narcissistic annihilation anxiety. Not narcissistic injury, which is the pain of wounded pride. Annihilation anxiety is deeper, more primal. It is the terror of psychological non-existence, the fear that without someone's emotional engagement confirming their reality, the narcissist simply does not exist in any meaningful way. Your revenge would have been engagement. Your silence was erasure. And erasure, to a narcissist, is existential catastrophe. The narcissist had a script for every possible ending to your relationship. They had the script for the explosive confrontation ending. They knew their lines, knew how to reframe it as your instability, knew exactly how to perform victim to the audience waiting in the wings. They had the script for the tearful reconciliation ending. They had the script for the slow fade. What they did not have, what they never wrote, because they never believed you capable of it, was the script for the quiet, dignified, completely final exit. You handed them a scene they had never rehearsed. And they have been improvising badly ever since. Think of the narcissist's psychology as an engine that runs on emotional combustion. Conflict, drama, reaction, pursuit, these are the combustion events that keep the engine operational. A revenge-fueled exit would have been maximum combustion, exactly the fuel type the engine was designed to convert into power. Your quiet exit introduced something the engine cannot process, stillness. And an engine that cannot combust does not idle. It stalls. Completely. And in the stalling, reveals every mechanical flaw it spent years concealing beneath the noise of constant operation. The narcissist spent the relationship training you toward reactivity. Every provocation was a conditioning event, designed to establish the pattern that their actions produce your emotions, their words produce your responses, their behavior determines your psychological state. This conditioning served them operationally. It kept you predictable, manageable, and reliably engaged. Your exit without revenge broke the conditioning completely. You demonstrated, in the most definitive possible way, that their actions no longer produced your reactions. That demonstration was not just personal liberation. It was the destruction of their operational model. There is a clinical term for what the narcissist experiences when a target exits without the expected emotional spectacle. It is called supply shock. The sudden, complete removal of a supply source that was previously generating consistent, high-quality narcissistic fuel. Supply shock produces a psychological state that functions similarly to acute withdrawal, cognitive disruption, emotional volatility, obsessive fixation on the lost supply source, and a desperate, escalating search for replacement supply sufficient to stabilize the system. None of the replacement supply will be sufficient. Because what you provided, and the specific way you provided it, cannot be easily replicated. What the narcissist thinks in the immediate aftermath of your quiet exit is a thought cycle so specific and so consistent across narcissistic presentations that it reads almost like a script. They did not fight. Why did they not fight? They always fought before. Something is different. Something is wrong. I need to know what is different. I need contact. I need a reaction. I need to understand what this silence means, and I need to understand it now. The urgency is not about you. It is about the information your silence is withholding, information about their own power that they cannot generate internally and desperately need you to provide externally. The absence of revenge also removed something the narcissist had been counting on, the ability to position themselves as the wronged party in the relationship's public narrative. A revenge-fueled exit would have given them content. Material. Evidence of your instability that they could present to mutual connections, new supply sources, and their own internal jury as justification for everything they did throughout the relationship. Your quiet exit gave them nothing to work with. The absence of your dramatic reaction left them holding a story with no villain except themselves. And that is a story the narcissist cannot tell. The deepest psychological truth about why your exit without revenge broke something fundamental in the narcissist is this: it communicated a level of self-possession they never believed you capable of achieving. Throughout the relationship, they systematically worked to erode your sense of self precisely to prevent this level of autonomous, self-directed action. Your quiet exit meant the erosion had failed. That the self they worked to dismantle had not only survived but grown sufficient to choose dignity over destruction. That revelation, that their primary project had failed completely, is the wound beneath every wound that your departure created. The turning point arrives when the narcissist realizes that your exit was not a strategy, it was a conclusion. Throughout the relationship, every time you threatened to leave, every time you withdrew, every time you created distance, it was part of an ongoing negotiation. A bid for change. A protest that still contained, at its core, the hope of resolution. The narcissist learned to read your departures as openings. As invitations to perform enough contrition to bring you back. This exit contained none of that invitation. And the moment they registered its absence, everything shifted. The narcissist's first response to that registration is disbelief. And disbelief, in a narcissistic psychology, is not a passive state. It is an active, operational mode. They begin testing the reality of your exit immediately. A message that appears casual but is carefully calibrated to provoke a response. An approach through mutual connections designed to create a channel for indirect engagement. A public display of thriving deployed where they know you are likely to encounter it. Each test is a probe for remaining emotional access. And your continued silence in response to each probe confirms, incrementally, devastatingly, that the exit was real. Here is the plot twist that redefines the entire power dynamic of the relationship. The narcissist, who positioned themselves as the one with options, the one with power, the one who could replace you effortlessly and did not need you the way you needed them, is now the one waiting. Watching. Monitoring. Hoping for a signal from someone who has moved beyond the range of their emotional reach. The person they performed superiority over throughout the entire relationship has become, in their absence, the person the narcissist is oriented toward. The reversal is total. The irony is exquisite. The turning point deepens when the narcissist attempts their most reliable re-entry tool, the vulnerability performance. The sudden, intense, carefully manufactured display of genuine remorse, genuine need, genuine recognition of what they lost. This performance was calibrated over the course of the relationship to produce a specific response in you, the empath's instinct to respond to pain, to offer comfort, to give one more chance to someone performing the change you always hoped was possible. Against your silence, this performance plays to an empty theater. And a performance with no audience has no power. What happens in the narcissist's psychology when the vulnerability performance fails is a collapse of one of their most important internal certainties, the belief that they understood you completely. Throughout the relationship, they maintained a detailed psychological profile of your patterns, your responses, your specific flavor of empathic availability. That profile told them you would respond to vulnerability. That profile told them you were incapable of sustained indifference to someone performing pain. Your silence disproved the profile. And a narcissist whose profile of their target has proven inaccurate is a narcissist operating blind. The power shift that this turning point produces is not gradual. It is categorical. Before your exit, the narcissist held the structural power in the dynamic, the power of unpredictability, of emotional withholding, of being the one who decided when closeness was granted and when it was withdrawn. After your quiet exit, that structural power dissolves completely. You are no longer in the structure. You have stepped outside it entirely. And power within a structure means nothing to someone who has left the building. The narcissist's thoughts during this turning point are characterized by a quality of desperate recalculation that reveals the depth of their dependency on your continued psychological presence. They are not just strategizing about how to bring you back. They are recalculating their entire self-assessment, the version of themselves that required your specific engagement to feel real, to feel significant, to feel like the superior, powerful, untouchable person the grandiose performance required them to be. Without you as a reference point, that self-assessment has no stable foundation. And an identity without a stable foundation does not simply wobble. It fractures. Here is what the narcissist discovers during this turning point that they were never prepared to discover, that you were not just a supply source. You were a psychological anchor. The consistency of your emotional engagement, even when that engagement was painful, even when it was the engagement of someone enduring rather than thriving, provided the narcissist with a regularity they cannot now replicate. New supply sources are inconsistent, unpredictable, not yet trained to the specific patterns of provision the narcissist requires. You, in your terrible, costly consistency, were irreplaceable in ways that only your absence reveals. The dramatic shift reaches its most visible expression when the narcissist's behavior in their social environment begins showing the strain of operating without your stabilizing influence. People who knew you both begin noticing changes. The charm that was once seamless develops visible seams. The confidence that once appeared unshakable now appears performed, and performance, once noticed as performance, can never again be mistaken for authenticity. The mask is still in place, but it is shifting, and the shifting is visible to anyone paying close enough attention. The turning point completes with a thought the narcissist has that is more honest than any thought they allowed themselves during the relationship, a thought that arrives in the unguarded silence of 3 a.m., in the specific stillness that exists when the new supply has gone home and the performance can finally drop and there is nothing left between the narcissist and the reality of what they did and what it cost. They left without hating me. And that means they left with their dignity completely intact. And mine, the dignity I performed for years, left with them. The collapse that follows your quiet exit is not the dramatic, visible implosion that revenge might have temporarily produced and then allowed the narcissist to recover from by reframing as your attack. It is something far more structurally damaging, a slow, systemic degradation that begins in the interior and moves outward with the quiet inevitability of a foundation crack spreading through a wall. Invisible at first. Then suddenly, catastrophically visible everywhere simultaneously. The narcissist's professional performance begins degrading during sustained supply drought in ways their colleagues cannot immediately categorize but cannot ignore. The precision that once characterized their decision-making becomes impulsive. The charisma that made them effective in rooms full of people becomes inconsistent, present one day, absent the next, in ways that create an unease in professional relationships that the narcissist cannot charm their way past because the charm itself is now flickering. The engine is running rough. And rough engines attract attention. The smear campaign, if launched against you, fails in ways the narcissist did not calculate. Because a smear campaign requires a target who is visibly destabilized, someone whose reaction to the campaign confirms the narrative being constructed about them. Your quiet exit and sustained silence in the face of the campaign provide no such confirmation. You do not defend publicly. You do not retaliate. You continue, visibly and quietly, building a life. And that continued, quiet building is a daily, public refutation of every narrative the narcissist attempts to construct about who you are. The new relationship, acquired quickly, displayed conspicuously, weaponized as proof of effortless recovery, begins showing its seams within weeks of the narcissist's supply drought deepening. The new partner is experiencing an intensity of idealization that is unsustainable precisely because it is compensatory, calibrated not to the new partner's actual qualities but to the specific depth of the void your absence created. The devaluation, when it arrives, will be proportionately brutal. Because the narcissist is not managing a relationship. They are managing a crisis. And crisis management makes for a devastating partner. Here is the consequence that hits the narcissist hardest and that they are least equipped to process. The realization that your quiet exit has given you the moral high ground permanently, irrevocably, and in a way that no subsequent narrative construction can destabilize. You left without revenge. That fact is unchangeable. Whatever story the narcissist tells about the relationship's end, whatever reframing, whatever revisionism, whatever character assassination they attempt, the foundational fact of your dignified exit stands beneath all of it as an immovable refutation of any narrative that positions you as the aggressor. The narcissist's internal world during the collapse phase is characterized by a specific, exhausting loop, the compulsive return to the moment of your departure, replayed from every possible angle, searching for the thing they missed, the signal they failed to read, the intervention that would have produced a different outcome. This loop is not grief. It is not regret in the healthy sense. It is the narcissist's control-oriented psychology refusing to accept an outcome it did not engineer. The loop runs because the narcissist cannot file away an ending they did not write. And your quiet exit was entirely, completely, devastatingly yours. Social relationships that the narcissist maintained through your implicit endorsement and emotional credibility are now navigated alone, without the warmth you generated in social contexts, without the authenticity your presence lent to their constructed persona, without the social intelligence you deployed to smooth the edges their unmoderated behavior created. People who were connected to both of you begin making choices about where their loyalty belongs. And the narcissist, without your stabilizing influence, is not making a compelling case for themselves in those silent social reckonings. The darkest consequence of your quiet exit is one that develops over time with a slow, grinding devastation the narcissist cannot outrun, the consequence of comparison. Every subsequent relationship is measured against the specific qualities you brought to the dynamic. The depth of your empathy, the consistency of your engagement, the particular quality of the supply you generated, rich, complex, emotionally substantive in ways that shallower supply sources cannot approximate. The comparison is not conscious or deliberate. It simply occurs. Automatically. Repeatedly. And in every instance, the current reality falls measurably short of the standard your presence established. The narcissist begins to understand, in the fragmented, unintegrated way their psychology permits understanding, that the revenge they expected and prepared for would have been manageable. They had tools for revenge. Scripts for it. Defense mechanisms calibrated to convert your attack into their victimhood. What they had no tools for was your peace. Your continued, visible, quiet construction of a life beyond them. Your peace is not something they can reframe as attack. Not something they can convert into supply. Not something their operational psychology has any mechanism to process. Your peace is the thing they cannot survive. And here is the brutal, final consequence that this chapter demands be stated without softening. The narcissist who watched you leave without revenge, who waited for the retaliation that never came, who prepared for the fight you refused to give them, is now carrying the full, unredistributed weight of everything they did throughout the relationship. Because revenge would have given them somewhere to put that weight. Onto you, onto your instability, onto the story of your attack. Your silence left the weight exactly where it belongs. On them. Entirely. Permanently. With no narrative architecture available to move it anywhere else. Here is the final truth that this entire video was constructed to deliver. You did not leave without revenge because you were weak. You did not leave without revenge because you were a pushover, or because you lacked the courage for confrontation, or because you did not understand the full scope of what was done to you. You left without revenge because, at the deepest level of who you are, you understood something the narcissist will never understand, that your energy is too valuable to spend on destroying someone who was already destroying themselves. You chose to spend it on yourself. And that choice was not mercy. It was mastery. The revenge you did not take did not disappear. It transformed. It became the life you are building in the silence of their absence. Every morning you wake up and choose your own peace over their chaos is revenge of a kind the narcissist cannot defend against. Every relationship you build on authentic reciprocity is revenge the narcissist cannot reframe. Every version of yourself you recover and strengthen and expand is revenge so complete, so total, and so permanent that no confrontation could have achieved a fraction of its power. To every person watching this who walked away quietly and then spent months wondering if the quiet was a mistake, hear this with every part of yourself. The narcissist is not okay. They are performing okay with the specific, desperate intensity of someone who is profoundly not okay and cannot afford to let it show. Behind the new relationship, behind the social media performance of thriving, behind the constructed narrative of your departure as their liberation, behind all of it, is a psychology in genuine, sustained, unresolvable crisis. Your quiet exit created that crisis. Your continued silence maintains it. Your peace deepens it daily. The question that haunted you, did leaving without revenge cost them anything? Has its complete answer now. It cost them the one thing they cannot replace, cannot manufacture, and cannot perform their way to possessing: a genuine encounter with the consequences of their own behavior, unmediated by the distraction of your retaliation. Your revenge would have been a distraction. Your silence was a mirror. And the narcissist, standing in front of that mirror with no performance left to give, is seeing something they spent a lifetime and an entire relationship engineering their world to avoid seeing. Themselves. Accurately. Finally. Inescapably. What your quiet exit also gave you, and this is the gift that belongs entirely to you, that has nothing to do with what it cost them, is the knowledge of your own character under the most extreme pressure a relationship can produce. You were wronged profoundly. You had every justification for retaliation that the world offers. And you chose differently. Not because you were told to. Not because you were performing virtue for an audience. But because, at the core of who you are, beneath everything the relationship attempted to dismantle, you found something that did not want to be reduced to their level. That finding is permanent. Carry it forward. The healing that follows a quiet exit is different from the healing that follows a revenge-fueled departure. It is cleaner. Less encumbered by the residue of actions taken in pain that must later be processed and integrated. You did not burn anything down on your way out, which means you have no ashes to stand in. The ground you are standing on is clear. The direction you are moving in is unobstructed. The version of yourself you are becoming is not defined by what you did to them in the end. It is defined entirely by what you chose for yourself. And that is the foundation that holds. There will be moments when the old anger surfaces, the anger that never got its confrontation, the fury that was swallowed and redirected into the quiet decision to simply leave. When those moments come, do not suppress the anger. It is legitimate. It is information about the magnitude of what was done to you. Feel it completely. Then release it, not because the narcissist deserves your release, but because carrying it serves their interests more than yours. Anger directed inward becomes depression. Anger metabolized becomes power. Choose the power. The narcissist left you with questions that had no answers, questions about what was real, what was performance, what they actually felt, whether any of it mattered. Those questions were part of the architecture of control. An unanswered question keeps you oriented toward the person who might answer it. Today, release the questions. Not because the answers do not matter, they do. But because the answers, if they ever arrived, would come from a source constitutionally incapable of providing them honestly. The questions were traps. And you are done with their traps. What awaits you on the other side of this, the other side of the quiet exit, the sustained silence, the healing that is happening even in the moments it does not feel like healing, is something the narcissist's presence in your life made structurally impossible, a relationship with yourself that is honest, stable, and not organized around someone else's needs. That relationship, with your own values, your own rhythms, your own deep, authentic sense of what you want your life to feel like, is the foundation upon which everything genuinely beautiful that is coming to you will be built. You left without revenge. You walked out of a burning building without looking